Hello, everyone. Eric from Helps YouTube Live. Hope you can hear me. Everyone can say that. If you hear me, let me know on the chat. Okay. My name's Eric, Executive Director, Founder of Helps. Sound is good. Thank you. And I'd like to welcome to our YouTube today on Tuesday, July 29th. Good to have you here. My name's Eric, been an attorney for 46 years now, the founder of Helps. Helps is a national law firm that represents seniors and disabled persons who owe debt they can't afford to pay. Our most important message to seniors is that your Social Security, your pension, your disability, your VA benefits, virtually all forms of retirement income are protected by federal and state laws, can't be taken from you. There's also a federal law called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, provides if you're represented by an attorney, debt collectors can no longer call or send demand letters anymore. They have to simply leave you alone. And that's what Helps does. When people find out about us, they enroll in Helps. We don't turn anyone away that needs our help. The cost is minimal. Maybe 1 out of 7 or 1 out of 6 of our clients get our help for free. You give us the creditors you owe money to or the debt collectors, we send what's called a cease and desist letter. Under federal law, a debt collector can no longer call or send you demand letters anymore. And we represent you ongoing so you don't have to deal with collectors again. If it's possible you get sued, if you got sued, we contact you, explain why you're not going to have to go to court, why they can't take your assets. We contact the attorney that sued you, let them know you're not going to go to court, and explain to you why you don't need to worry, and explain to you again how your bank account is protected. There's a federal rule went into effect in 2012 that provides that twice the amount of your federal benefits, such as Social Security, deposited in your bank account, that particular bank account is protected from garnishment in the event there's a lawsuit and a judgment against you. That account is protected from garnishment up to an amount equal to twice the amount of federal benefit that you get each month. So if you got $1,000 in Social Security, $2,000 in your bank account is protected. You get $2,000 in Social Security, $4,000 is protected. So for these and other reasons, you're going to be okay. The whole purpose of Helps is so that we can protect you from the creditors harassing. You can always have someone to call if you're worried or scared. We don't want you to be worried or scared. And the way we do the YouTube Live is I've got things that I read here from clients, and then you can also ask questions, and I'll deal with the questions. I always try to put the questions that you ask on the chat. I prioritize those, okay? And sometimes we have people that listen to us, every day. We do this Monday through Thursday, same time, for an hour, and I can identify the questions on the chat feature. So don't be bashful for asking a question. There's no stupid questions. And sometimes we repeat the same thing, but I've learned that our people like me to repeat the same thing. They like to hear it again. They want to make sure, did I hear that right? So don't worry about, that you might think, well, this has probably already been asked and answered. Don't worry about that. So Tommy is asking, what is a court-appointed receiver in a lawsuit judgment? Okay, so I'm going to bet, Tommy, you're from Texas. Why don't you let me know if that's the case? So different states have different laws, and a lot of the laws, overlap between the states. They're similar or the same. So if someone sues you and gets a judgment, they can. Some states have different proceedings they have to try to collect on the judgment. Okay, and sometimes states have different laws, and sometimes a debt collector will use those laws to intimidate or scare a senior into making arrangements to pay a debt when the senior really doesn't need to do that. And a good example of that is Texas. If they get a judgment, once in a while a judgment creditor will appoint what's called a court-appointed receiver, and you get a scary letter from this guy who says he's a receiver, and he's coming to come take all your property, okay, or something like that. But then if you read it, and it says, except any property that's exempt. And what they don't tell you is that in Texas, you've got like a $50,000 exemption They really can't take anything. But if you got that letter and you didn't know what your rights are, it could scare you. So yeah, if someone sues one of our clients and you get a paper that you're not sure, you get a copy to us. We'll call you and tell you what to do and why you don't need to worry about it. Okay. So I'm waiting for Tommy to tell me he's from Texas because I'm kind of betting he is. Um, so JC asked 0007. He asked, do you have student loan recommendations? I don't need to recommend student loans now. Okay. I'll talk about it a little bit more later, but they're not collecting on student loans for seniors. Okay. If you owe a student loan and you're a senior and you get Social Security, it, the most they could do previously was offset 15% of your Social Security to pay for a past due student loan. Um, and they used to have a procedure to stop that. It became kind of complicated. And then with COVID and everything, they haven't been able to collect on student loans for the last 5 years. And then, like on May 3rd or May 5th, the government announced that they were going to start collecting on student loans again. We did a couple of videos again, offsetting 15% of Social Security for student loans. Well, they never did do that, and they came out and announced on June 5th that they were going to do that. They weren't going to do that. And I'll read you later on what the government said about that. But if you have a student loan, you're not going to have to pay it, at least not now. And if you're lower income or modest income seniors, likely in the future, there's going to be a procedure where you can get on like an income-based repayment plan and not have to pay it at all. Okay. Um, so Jay Tellerico says, original creditor threatened a lawsuit. I agreed to make payments, but now after a year, affordability is an issue. Advice for this? So yeah, JET, if if your income is Social Security or pension, it's protected. You don't need to pay that debt anymore. You can stop. Even if you agreed to pay it, you don't need to pay it. No. What is the creditor going to do? They may do nothing. If you enroll in HELPS, we're going to send a cease and desist letter out to that creditor. They're going to leave you alone. They may turn it over to a collection agency. It doesn't matter. Okay. But the the information we want you to understand is that if you get Social Security or a pension or disability or VA benefits, your income is protected. Even if someone sues you and gets a judgment, they can't take it from you. Okay. So yeah, you can stop making that payment. Okay. Now, why is your income protected? Because lawmakers know and understand that seniors have limited income, and sometimes they need that money for their basic needs, for their food, their medicine, etc. Okay. So no, you can stop making that payment. Okay. Um, so Tony asked, I just received a summons that I've been sued by Citibank. I am a member of HELPS. I live in Michigan, and shall I just send a copy of this to your office so it can be handled? Absolutely. We don't really need the entire lawsuit. We usually need the first 2 to 3 pages. We need the name of the attorney, the case number. Okay, that's pretty much it, with the attorney's address. And then we're going to send a letter to the attorney letting them know that your income is protected, that you can't afford to pay the debt, that you're not going to contest the lawsuit. We understand they're going to get a judgment, but remind the attorney of the protected nature of your bank account, money in your bank account. We really don't need to do that because it's protected by your bank automatically without you having to do anything. So, and then we're going to send you a letter explaining to you, an email explaining to you why your income's protected, why you not need to go to court. And we're going to call you on the phone too and talk to you. Okay. And that's the whole purpose of HELPS. If you ever have a question, or if you're ever worried or scared, even if you've talked to us before and gotten the answer before, you can call again. There's no limits to the amount of calls you can make to HELPS. Okay? Okay. Tommy says, oh, you're 100% right. Oh, gosh. I am from Texas. I don't know where you found your help. I have to talk to, I don't know how many times. They're very professional. Very, okay. And yeah, you bet. They have that little receiver letter. And if you got it, Tommy, you can probably echo me that when you receive it, it sounds pretty scary, doesn't it? Yeah, it's a joke. I mean, we have a we contact when one of our clients gets one of those letters. We send a letter to the receiver. We let them know our client's income is Social Security, pension, their assets are protected. We'll let them know that. Okay, so they leave you alone. But see, that receiver, he doesn't have to tell you that. And if you call him on the phone, make arrangements to pay, he gets a little commission for doing that. Okay, so and there's other states that have similar type of things, but Texas is famous for court-appointed receiver. Jamie says, my mortgage said 6 months plan. Now they say no by the end of month. Well, you need to probably call us on that. If you're behind on the mortgage, we can talk to you about it. It gets a little complicated, too many to be able to answer in this kind of format. Okay. So when a senior, Ms. H asks, when a senior starts getting payments from a IRA, is it protected from creditors or a judgment, or does it need to come in a check form or to the account where the Social Security goes? It's always better if it goes. I don't care how it comes, but it should end up in the account in which your Social Security goes. Okay. That way, if now if you haven't been sued, I don't care how you get the money because no one can garnish your bank account unless they've sued you and have a judgment against you. So if no one sued you, if you haven't been served with legal papers, you have nothing to worry about. Now, if you get sued, you have nothing to worry about either. They have to get a judgment, and that would be, probably 60, 90, 120 days away in the future. It's not going to happen right away. So you have plenty of time to get your finances in order so that your money is kept in the account to which Social Security goes, where it's automatically protected. Okay? So this person contacts us. Get my glasses on to read this. It says they were served with multiple lawsuits today. Oh, yeah. And how did she find out about us? Well, the guy that served her with the lawsuits told her about helps. She had been serving papers to people, and he somehow he or she knew about helps, and he said, I'm serving you with these legal papers, but you may want to contact this company called Helps. They'll be able to help you with this. You don't have anything to worry about. Okay. Um, and then she says, or I don't know, he or she says, they're paying $495 a month to Guardian Law Group. Ooh. They have 5,000 in medical debt, 5,000 in credit card debt. Husband is a wage earner, does not qualify for helps as he is. They have joint banking, no auto payments up, live on the parents' land, no home in their name, 2 cars owned outright. They have a 5th will. Apparently, the debt is owed by the wife, not the husband. And we told them they can cancel that contract with Guardian. Uh, it's like a debt management company, but these guys, I don't know, if you're enrolled with debt management or debt settlement, the question I have for you is, when you enrolled with them, did they tell you, by the way, you don't need our help because your Social Security, your pension is protected. No one can take it from you. If you weren't told that, you weren't given the complete information that you deserve to know. They looked out for their interest, not your interest. Um, and I get really disappointed with these debt management, debt settlement companies because, with rare exception, they won't tell a senior that their income is protected. Instead, they sign them up, often putting the senior in utter poverty, making a payment they can't afford to pay. This guy's paying nearly $500 a month to Guardian Law Group. So then they called again earlier in July. Um, and then they called again, looks like it may have been yesterday, to get their bank account changed. And it looks like they enrolled in helps. Yeah. So if you have a question, put it in the chat feature. You can always also call helps toll free 855-435-7787. Um, so CK asked, what should I tell my bank when stopping payments to a creditor? Anything besides account number and name. Really don't want to change account if possible. Thank you. Uh, okay. I'll answer that question. So if you have money being taken out automatically to pay a creditor or a collector, if it's a credit card company, all you need to do is get online and stop the automatic payment with the credit card company or call them on the phone. They're used to doing that all the time. Now, if it's with a higher interest rate outfit and you're uncomfortable, you can contact your bank and they'll put a stop payment on the money you're paying to that creditor or collector. It might cost $30 to do that. We have an email that explains exactly how to do that or the different ways of doing it. But you can stop it with your bank. You know, it's your money in your bank account. You're the one who tells your bank what to do with your money. So you tell them to stop paying someone, they have to do it. Okay. Now, what if it's your own bank you owe money to? Okay. Now, if it's a credit union and you're not going to pay them, then what you're going to want to do is change to a different bank account, whether you like it or not, because you signed a form with the credit union letting them know that giving them authority to take money out of your account to pay a debt you owe them. So they could take money out of your checking account. Now, they wouldn't do that unless you're probably 3 or 4 months behind, but that would give you plenty of time to have your Social Security or your pension go into a different bank account where you don't owe money. But if it's a bank, uh, technically, under the law, a bank cannot offset money out of your bank account to pay a debt you owe the bank, like a credit card or a loan, if the only income going in there is Social Security. Okay, they're different than a credit union, and so you could still use the same bank. Now, if you have money going in there other than Social Security, legally they could do an offset. My experience is they don't do that. Now, the only exception would be Truist Bank. Truist Bank has kind of joined the ranks of the credit unions, and they had you sign a form giving them authority to take money out of your account in case you don't pay a credit card bill or a loan with them. So if you owe money to Truist Bank, that you're not going to pay, you're going to want to change to a different bank. Okay. Hope that answered your question. If not, you can ask it again, CK, or you can always call if I don't ask your question completely, or if you think that there's something else you need to follow up on, you can always call us. GH says, if you already have 2 mortgages and a lien happens, Michigan has very low exemption. I was sued with no court dates. Okay, we've got lots of videos where we talk about this, but every state has what's called exemption laws that protect a certain amount of equity in property. So much equity in a car, so much equity in household goods, maybe so much equity in a home. Okay, but let's say that you have a home and it's worth 200,000, you owe 50,000, but the exemption in your state is only 50,000. That means you've got 100,000 in equity over and above the exemption for your state. Does that mean if a creditor sues you, they're going to try to take your home? The answer is no. Now, legally, could they do it? Well, it's within the range. Yeah, it's legal. It's very complicated, but they simply don't do it. Now, what do I know? I probably filed 30 or 40,000 bankruptcies before I started Helps. Helps has been around since 2012. It is not the practice of consumer judgment creditors to go after people's non-exempt property, like non-exempt equity in a car or equity in a home. They don't do it, even if they get a judgment. They don't do it for a number of reasons. So don't worry about it. You're not going to lose your home. Okay. So Bonnie asks, in keeping with the IRA, if you are withdrawing the balance from a small 401k, does that mean it should go into the Social Security protected bank account too? If you've been sued and there's a judgment, if you have it deposited into that Social Security account, then remember twice the amount of monthly Social Security you get each month is automatically protected, even if the money in the account is from another source. But you don't need to worry about that unless you've been sued and there's a judgment. If you haven't been sued, there's no judgment. It doesn't matter. You could have okay, but if you've sued in a judgment, then to be safe, you probably should keep your money into the account to which Social Security goes and keep the balance less than twice the amount you get each month. Now, if you happen to have more than that in there, and they did a garnishment, you should be able to get it released. You'd have to file what's called a challenge of garnishment or claim of exemption, and the court would order that money be released. We help people do that when that happens. It doesn't happen very often because most of our clients, they take our advice, and if they're sued, they just keep the balance in their bank account to which Social Security goes, or a federal benefit like post office retirement, VA is federal benefit, federal worker pension. The federal pension is protected twice the amount is protected automatically. Okay, okay. I got this one. This guy writes in, he says, my bank account has been garnished with less than 2 times my Social Security benefits in it. I don't know if I mentioned this yesterday or not, but I saw it again and I'll repeat it. Um, well, yeah, if it has less than 2 times the amount in your Social Security, your bank's going to protect that. You don't have anything to worry about. Now, if you're going to tell me that you had less than twice the amount of your Social Security in there, twice the monthly amount you get each month in Social Security there, and they took the money, then yeah, then you'd want to contact us. Yeah, I think I did talk about this yesterday, but I'll talk about it again. So, but if you had like a savings account, and that's not the account to which Social Security goes, that's a different account. They could take that money, and you'd have to file paperwork to show the court that the money originally came from Social Security, and the court would order it be released. Okay. The bank, under the rule, if a bank gets a writ of garnishment, there's a department in the bank that deals with garnishments. They examine where your money came from that was deposited into your account. Okay, and if it came from a federal source like Social Security, they can tell that on a code where the deposit is made. They can tell it came from a federal source, and they automatically protect twice that amount from garnishment. And they have 48 hours to examine your account, so they can hold up your account for a little bit while they examine your account. My experience usually is they do it within a couple minutes. If there's ever a problem, it's on Monday, the bank got a garnishment on Friday, and they were busy and they didn't have a chance to look at the account. And so, person finds out on Saturday that their account is frozen when they go to use their debit card, and then they call us Monday morning. My account's been frozen. I tell them just wait till this afternoon or tomorrow morning, it'll get released. And we we never get calls back. That's because the banks release it. Now, if you're going to ask your bank manager about this, he doesn't know anything about this rule because he doesn't have anything to do with garnishments. Okay. But there's a department in the bank that does. So this person contacts us from Pennsylvania. He gets Social Security only as income. He owns a car outright, credit card debt, student loans, applied for a hardship with credit cards that would allow it. Well, there really is no program to allow for hardship with credit cards that I'm aware of. Sometimes I read about it on the internet. I mean, you could call and ask, but it's not going to get you anywhere. They don't care. They just want to get your money. They're not going to tell you your rights. A creditor or debt collector doesn't have to tell you that your income's protected. No, they're not going to tell you that. They just want you to pay the money. So there's no formal hardship program. Okay. Although you read the internet, sometimes they make it think that way because a lot of times the information comes from these debt management companies, these nonprofit ones, because they want your business. And they do good work for people that are working or younger, I guess. I even wonder about that. Um, just a minute here. There we go. Sometimes my computer, I have to sign back in. It signs me out for some stupid reason. So be right back with you here. Okay. So you apply for hardship with credit cards that would like to keep a couple cards for emergencies. Yeah, you know, when you enroll in helps, when you call us, one of the questions we'll ask you: do you have a credit card with a small balance or nothing is owed that you'd still like to keep? And if the answer is yes, we'll say as long as that credit card isn't backed by a bank with whom you have another credit card, with you another credit card that you're not going to pay, there's no reason why you wouldn't be able to keep that card. Okay. So we talked to this guy, told him what we did, told him about his student loans, why he didn't worry about those, and he enrolled with helps. This other person asked, and they say, my only income is Social Security. I'm enrolled in debt consolidation program. I pay them every month and they allocate the funds to my debt. Credit cards also pay them a $75 administration fee a month. Can I pay the creditors on my own? What if I can't afford to pay them anymore? The question I'd ask this person would, well, when you signed with this debt consolidation program, did they tell you that your Social Security was protected and also your pension, and you didn't pay the debt? And what this person's going to say is, no, Mr. Olson, they never told me that. And I'm going to say they withheld important information from you. Okay, they looked out for their own financial information, not their financial interest, not your financial interest. They didn't tell you that your income was protected and you didn't need to pay the debt. If they would have told you that, you wouldn't have enrolled with them and they wouldn't make money from you. So no, and if you're enrolled with one of those programs, you can stop it now. If you call them on the phone, you can ask them to return any money that they're holding for you. You can also ask them, why didn't you tell me when I enrolled with you that my Social Security and my pension was protected? And see what they say. A lot of times they won't ask people about that. I think that way they can justify to themselves that, okay, well, we don't ask where they get their money from. Therefore, you know, what we do isn't wrong. It's not a sin. But they know, and shame on them. I get really frustrated because I talk to too many seniors that have just been paying these companies, and I know exactly what these companies do. Okay. Roberto asked, do you know how long a judgment garnishment against you will be enforced? So a garnishment in almost every state is just a snapshot in time. So it's a one-time thing. Okay. The bank gets a garnishment. They open up the mail at 10 o'clock in the morning. They look at your bank account, less than twice the amount in there. They rip it up, throw it away. Um, if you happen to put more money in the afternoon, it's more than twice the amount. They've already done it. They've already looked at it at 10 o'clock in the morning. So it's history. Can they garnish you again? They could. Normally they won't. If they see they're not going to get anything. Remember, we've sent them a letter already if you're part of helps, letting them know that your income is protected. Sometimes then you might say, well, gee, Eric, if you told them that, why they do it? What? Why do people do dumb things? I don't know. Uh, I think a lot of time it's automated. Collection is prone or lends itself to automation. You can automate these letters, they can kick them out, so that's what they do. Okay, what if there is a savings account and the money was transferred to it from the checking account that had Social Security in that one? After the transfer, will that money still be protected from a transfer? Not automatically, but if you had money in a savings account, you could, and there was a garnishment, that money could be held up. You could file a challenge of garnishment or claim of exemption with the court and present evidence to the judge and show where that money came from, a protected source, and he should order that that money be released to you. Okay. Now, sometimes the amount in the savings account will be $10 or $20, may not be worth the effort to do that. You say, well, forget about it. Okay. So Sunset, hi, the protection is automatic to the account code that Social Security posted to you. Well, yeah, so when money gets deposited in your account, Sunset, there's a code where the money came from. And apparently there's numbers on that code that the bank can identify that it came from a federal source. Okay. So if it's done electronically, they can determine, oh, 734, that's Social Security, or 732, that's from, there's a code they can tell it came from a federal source. And that's all they need to do is they look at that and protect it automatically. Okay. So here's a person, like I said, I repeat myself. That's okay. People come in late, but they like to hear it again. What about student loans? Well, right now we don't have to worry about student loans. Oh, this is what I wrote. I got this on the internet today. Okay, because what happened was, I've been involved with student loans for a long time, helping seniors. In fact, Helps was the plaintiff in a lawsuit started back in, I think, 2017, and we actually there was an automatic stay on the government, not automatic stay. There was a federal judge put a hold on the United States from trying to offset Social Security. 15% of Social Security helps. We were the ones that were one of the plaintiffs in that lawsuit. We were represented by Northwest Legal Services. They came to us and said, Eric, we want to do this lawsuit against the federal government. We know you represent all these seniors. Will you be our plaintiff? And I said, sure. And then we were well into the lawsuit when COVID hit. And then, so it's been, 5, 6, 7 years since they've been able to offset 15% of Social Security. So back on like May 3rd, they said the administration said we're going to start offsetting 15% of Social Security for seniors. And I did a video on it, did a video with senior living on it, maybe did an article on it. And lo and behold, I'm going to read you this. Spokesperson Ellen Keish told USA Today in a statement on Tuesday, June 3rd, that the Department of Education has not offset any Social Security benefits since collections were started last month. This is all a quote. The Trump administration is committed to protecting Social Security recipients who oftentimes rely on a fixed income, Keish said in a statement to USA Today. In the coming weeks, the department will begin proactive outreach to recipients about affordable loan repayment options, help them back into good standing. I wasn't surprised to hear that. So, in fact, when I did some of those videos with senior living, I told Jeff White, I said, they're going to get a lot of calls from seniors, and seniors are going to call their congressman. They're not going to be happy when they read about this. See, the problem with the offset of 15% of your student loans, if you're modest income or lower income senior and you rely on Social Security, 15% can be a lot of money. It can make all the difference in the world. And like for taxes, if you owe taxes, you can get on non-collectible now status. Okay, and it's not that difficult to get on it. But with student loans, to get on what's called an income-based repayment plan, in the old days, it was just really difficult to do that. They made it really complicated. That's the reason we filed that lawsuit against the government, to get them to make it easier. So hopefully, if they're going to start to offset student loans, they're going to set it up more like they do with the IRS, that you can get on it easier where you don't have the money to pay it. See, it doesn't make any sense to take 15% of a senior's income that gets $1,000 in Social Security. Now they're getting $850. Okay, and now they have to cut back on their medicine. They go to the hospital, or they get sick, or they don't have enough heat, and they get pneumonia. You know, there's got to be a way for seniors that have modest or lower income to get the student loans waived, or really small payment, depending on how much they make. And it's got to be a procedure that's simple. It can't be complicated. But right now they're not doing it. And it may be a while before they do it. We'll wait and see. But if when it does happen, helps will be here to help people. Okay. So you ask, what about a small retirement payment from TIAA CREF? Well, I don't. Okay, so here's the deal. Back in 1974, a law was passed called ERISA, called Employment Retirement Income Security Act of 1974, and most pensions are covered under that that federal law, which protects a pension from being garnished for a debt. But I've been an attorney since 1978. I've never seen a pension garnished yet. Okay, ever. And I deal in this law and have for the last 46 years. If it's not protected under ERISA, then there's a state that protects that pension. Okay, so no one's going to take your pension. Yeah, they're not going to do it. Don't worry. Okay. So the rest of the statement on this USA article says, the announcement is a reversal for the administration after announcing April 21st that the Education Department Office of Federal Student Loan would resume collection of its defaulted federal student loans on May 5th, ending a more than 5-year pause initiated in March 2020 as part of COVID era policies. Actually, the pause was at least 2 or 3 years before that. And I told people, I think, Trump has a thing about, and this, I'm not being political, but I read stuff, and I think he has a thing about about Social Security, about seniors being able to keep their Social Security. He's talking about it not being taxed. So I'm kind of not surprised that they put a halt to this. Okay. Okay, this person from New York. Oh, I think I talked to them yesterday. Oh yeah. So someone called me, a financial advisor that was helping this couple, and the wife was sick, and the husband needed help. Okay, and she was helping him, and she was calling to enroll him in helps. And I started asking questions and learned that he didn't have a lot of debt, $5,000 to $10,000 in debt. His only income was $1,200 for Social Security, and his wife got $950. But they had a home that was worth $1.3 million that was free and clear. And then they had taxes each year on the home of $9,000. That's like, what, $750 a month? Okay. So you subtract that from their income, they were living off about maybe $1,300. Uh, and they had to have that for food, for medicine, for utilities, and for everything else. And what I told them, I said, oh, have you thought about looking into a reverse mortgage? And at first, the financial advisor said, no, I'm sure that's a good idea. And I said, well, wait a minute. I don't sell reverse mortgages. Okay. I don't care if anyone gets them, but I want to tell people about them when it could make sense. Well, she was worried about the interest rate. And I said, well, interest rate really doesn't matter a whole lot. Do they have kids? And she said, yeah. And I caught from the conversation earlier that this couple the kids were kind of estranged from mom and dad. And I said, well, I mean, if they got a reverse mortgage based on how much that home is worth, they would have access to maybe $300,000 or $400,000. They wouldn't have to take it all at once. They could get an extra, $1,000 or $1,500 a month. and they could also pay their property taxes on top of that. And that'd make a huge difference in their life. Now, instead of living off of, $1,300, they could be living off of nearly $3,000 and not having to worry about their property taxes. And they could live in the home to the day they die. They still control it. They could sell the home. They could still leave it to their kids, but but they'd be able to tap into that equity through a reverse mortgage. And she said, "Yeah, Eric, that makes sense. That would solve their problem." And it would. So I gave them a number of a guy. We refer a lot of cases to a guy from Michigan. I've had him on our YouTube videos for helps. His name's Ken Grajewski. I have absolutely no financial relationship with this guy at all. I met him in Chicago at Aging in America conference when Helps was brand new. He came by the booth and we kind of hit it off. And he told me he did reverse mortgages. And he's been really good to our clients over the years. So, been really good to our clients. The why I say that is because we have a lot of clients that have, homes that aren't worth a whole lot, but they could get a reverse mortgage. He treats them just like he works the case where a person has a lot of equity on a case that's, where he would make more money because they get a commission for that. It's all regulated by law. It's not one guy isn't better than the next. It's just who you talk to, the service you get. So, you're not going to get a better price by going to one company or the next. So he's been really good to our clients, and we refer cases to him. And I'll continue doing that because, he's been good to our clients. So I told this financial advisor, and the husband was on the line. He wasn't talking, but he'd say a few words. And they were going to call today to this Ken and talk to him about this, but it could change this couple's whole life, make everything for the better. So if someone tells you that a reverse mortgage is awful, sometimes that's throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's not for everyone, but for a lot of seniors, it's a real answer to prayer. And for someone who just dismisses it lock, stock, and barrel, I tell you, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're talking about. It's not for everyone, that's true. But for some people, in certain financial situations, it's an answer to prayer. Now, if you're going to sell the home within the next couple of years, yeah, reverse mortgage doesn't make sense. But if you want to stay there and it works for you, then reverse mortgage could make a lot of sense. Okay. And you're right, Sunset. Property taxes have run amok, and that's one nice thing about a reverse mortgage. Sometimes it can provide to pay your property taxes for you. So Miss H says, I remember a man that was married and he didn't know his wife took out a reverse mortgage. When she died, he didn't understand how it all worked, that he had to pay it back the money, went to court and lost. Okay, that doesn't happen nowadays. Okay, they've changed the rules. Reverse mortgages came to be during the Reagan administration. Okay, I think that's when they started. And I was a young attorney then. Okay, and then they've developed over time. They've become more difficult to get. One reason is because one requirement of reverse mortgage in certain instances is that you maintain the property taxes. And what was happening, they were giving reverse mortgage to people that couldn't afford to pay property taxes. And then the property taxes would mount up and the person would die. And then all of a sudden the bank would get the mortgage back, get the home back. And there wasn't enough equity in the home to pay off the loan. And so they go to the government, because it's a government insured loan, the government would have to pony up the money. And so what the government did is they said, well, listen, we're going to tighten the restrictions. And so there is a little credit check when you get a reverse mortgage. And the only reason that's going to affect your ability to get a reverse mortgage is if you have poor credit, depending on a few other factors, you might be required to pay the property taxes. Okay. And if you don't have the income to pay the property taxes, you might not be qualified to get a reverse mortgage. So those days, Miss H, have come and gone. They've tightened up the requirements for reverse mortgage. And then the other reason a reverse mortgage could be difficult for people, at least nowadays, to qualify, because the interest rates have gone up. It means you have to have more equity in the home to get a reverse mortgage, since the interest rates are higher. So it was her home before they married. Yeah. You could also add someone's name to the home. But then the other thing I would say, if she had not had a reverse mortgage, she may not have had, when she got married to this guy, she may not have been able to keep the home, and then it may have been foreclosed long ago. So at least during their marriage, she was able to have this home. So there's a tendency to blame a reverse mortgage for a problem when in fact it's the person's problem. Now, if this person had enough equity and she got married, it's pretty simple to get the new husband added to the reverse mortgage, assuming that it fits the income require or the equity requirements. Okay? Yeah. We've got videos on our YouTube page that talk about reverse mortgages, interviews with Ken that I do with him. And I'm going to have him. I've had him on this channel before, and I need to do that. I've been promising him to do that. So this person contacts us from Alabama. Age is 65. I talked to this guy myself, Huntsville, and he gets 3,000 in disability. I remember this guy. You know why I remember him? I think he was 89 years old. Was that how old he was? And he talked like he was 39. He was just so fast. His voice sounds so young. I had to ask him a couple times. I said, now tell me how old again you are. He said, 80. I said, I have a hard time believing that. You just sound like you're in your 30s. He says, I know, people tell me that. So anyway, yeah, as a trailer he can't afford. He had an RV. And it's either got a divorce or his wife passed away. He couldn't afford it anymore. He owes 70,000 on it. He may be listening today. I don't know. But he just couldn't afford it anymore. Um, and the loan was with Bank of America. I told him, well, you can stop making the payment. You can go back. I told him what he needs to do is if you got an RV or a trailer or even a car, stop making the payment. You don't call them and tell them that you can't afford it while you're current. You wait till they call you when the payment's behind, and then you tell that person you can't afford it, and then they'll make arrangements to pick it up. Okay. And he had a credit card with USAA, and I mistakenly thought USAA was a credit union, but he instructed me. He said, "No, Eric, that's a bank." And I looked it up, and sure enough, it is a bank. So I told him, I said, "Well, okay." And he kind of wanted to stay banking with them. But the other thing is, he had a car loan uh, with the USAA. And if it would have been a credit union, it would have been what's called cross collateralized, which means he could have paid the car off, but if he didn't pay the credit card debt would be a lien on the car. Now, banks don't do that, but credit unions do. They have what's called cross collateralization agreements. And I looked it up, and sure enough, they don't do cross collateralization agreements with USAA. So he could stop paying the credit card, still bank there. They're not going to kick him out. It's not their practice, not banks' practice to do that. Credit unions would do that. And still make the car payment. And when he pays it off, he's going to get the title to the car. Oh, and then what I found out is that we talked into it. I found out the credit card that he had wasn't actually with USAA. It was with American Express. It looks like USAA had partnered with American Express. It was an American Express card with USAA benefits or something like that. So, but it's actually an American Express card. So it wasn't backed by USAA. So I learned a lot of things in that phone call. And maybe you'll glean from my knowledge what I learned from this nice guy from Alabama. Um, so yeah, I learn new things all the time. I don't know it all by any means. So Stephen asked a question. When a creditor gets a judgment against me, can they take my home? So Stephen, if you've been listening to me before, everyone else is going to know what I say. I would say this. Um, uh, Eric, if I um, are the Martians going to come for dinner Saturday night? Or Eric, if I go to Circle K tomorrow night at 10:07 p.m. to get a Slurpee, uh, am I going to get hit by a drunk driver? Well, it's possible the Martians could come for dinner, aliens. I mean, it's not totally impossible. And you could get hit by a drunk driver at 10:07 p.m. on tomorrow night, exactly, driving to Circle K to get a Slurpee. But do you live your life that way? And the answer is no. No. Is it going to happen? Absolutely not. Martians aren't coming for dinner, and you're not going to get hit by a drunk driver tomorrow at 10:07 p.m. Just isn't going to happen. So no, they're not going to take your home. It's not the practice of consumer judgment creditors to take people's home. Like I explained earlier, every state has a homestead exemption. Even if you have equity over and above the homestead exemption, they're not going to go after your home. There's a lot of reasons for that. It's too complicated. It could be prevented. Maybe you own the home with your spouse. Maybe you own it with your kids. No, they're not going to take your home. And we got videos that talk about, you can always call and talk to us. Anyone that I'm talking to, if this is your first time or you're learning about helps, you can call and talk to us and we'll go over these things with you. Remember what we're here for. Our number one goal is to protect you from collectors harassing you. Our second mission is to educate you how to maintain your financial independence. And so that's why we tell you these things that we're talking about today. Okay? Um, no, they're not going to take your home. You don't have to worry. Okay. Time is flying. So this person contacted us from California, on the other side of this country. My husband passed away recently and left a mountain of debt. A lot of credit cards are in his name, with only a few of them having me as an additional cardholder, not actually on the account. And a very few are joint accounts. Am I responsible for the debt on the accounts that I am not named? You're not responsible for any of them. I'll explain why. I have a company, Amacor, trying to settle all the debt, but when I told them what he had died, they stopped paying for everything in his name only. Now I'm wondering if I should just leave it or if they will come after me or as his husband. So here's the deal. No, if first off, if this person's getting Social Security, they don't need AmeriCorps. They don't need to pay their debt at all. It's protected. Okay, and if they weren't told that, they were being defrauded by this debt management company by not telling them the complete truth. It's not the okay, it's now she may have been an authorized user on a card. Does that mean she's responsible for that card? No. But then you might say, well, Eric, California is a community property state, and so a spouse is responsible for that debt. Well, California, yes, is technically a community property state, but it's not the practice of credit cards to go after a spouse, even in a community property state, for debt where only one spouse signed for the debt. They don't do it. Okay. So, and someone might tell you, well, they can do that. It's a community property state. Well, yeah, but they don't do it. And I'm here to tell you that 74 years old, been doing this for 46 years. They don't do it. They simply don't. So you don't need to worry about it. So you don't need to pay any of them. And they have a separate question. Social Security is continue paying monthly even though they have been advised of his death. I am keeping the payment separate because I know they will want all the money back. Any ideas to how to get them to realize he is dead to stop the payments? Well, you got to report it to the Social Security Administration, and usually the funeral parlor will do that. You can ask them to do it, and they'll do it. And if they don't do it, you can do it yourself by calling Social Security Administration. If you don't, and you get the money and you keep it, then they're going to they can cut off your Social Security, or take half of it. It seems to change what percentage they can take. But no, don't spend it, otherwise it could affect your Social Security. Now you want to notify them as soon as possible after the death, so they stop the payment, so you don't have this problem. So one more question, then we'll go. But we'll have this tomorrow too. Remember? Okay. But then it looks like we got a question from Stephen. What does it mean when a lien is put on your home? Okay. Well, there's a mortgage lien when you buy a home and they describe the property. Okay. If someone sues you and gets a judgment in most states can be a lien on real property. That means a home on dirt, on land, in the county where the judgment is located, but not in every state. And for example, Florida, Texas, you can have a home with it, essentially any amount of equity at all, and they may be a judgment lien, but if you go to sell the home, you can get the judgment lien removed. So uh, um, it's normally not a problem. That can be resolved different ways. So let's say you owned it as a husband and wife, and the judgment was just against the husband, and they own it jointly with survivorship rights, which you would if you were married. So the husband dies. When he dies, the judgment is gone. It goes away. He's dead. Okay. The property automatically transfers to the wife. The judgment is only against the husband. He's up in heaven now, hopefully. And if the property is only in the wife's name, the judgment lien is gone. So we talk to people about this, explain why it isn't to worry about. Maybe if you added your kid's name to the home at your death and before they had the judgment, then at your death the property goes to the kids, judgment lien goes away. Okay, so it's been an hour and it's flown by, and I've got one, two, three more pages of notes to talk about. But it looks like we're going to talk about those tomorrow and other stuff. So if you're press the like button. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do that. And then what I would like you to do, if you have a question, you can always call helps, whether you're a member or not. We always like your calls. And we'll get back. If we can't talk to you right then, we'll get back to you. We got a big staff and they're very knowledgeable. Most important thing I want you to understand is we don't want you to worry. So if you're if you're worrying about this, be sure and call. That's why Helps was founded. God bless and have a great day.